Everyone called her impossible to love. Men laughed at her, townsfolk whispered behind her back, and she had stopped believing happiness was meant for her. But when a quiet mountain man knelt in front of her one snowy morning, she thought he was about to reject her too. Instead, he said 7 words that changed both of their lives forever. The woman nobody chose. The first snow of October covered the Montana mountains in a blanket of white. Clara Bennett pulled her worn brown coat tighter around her shoulders as she carried another bucket of water toward the small boarding house where she worked. At 26, Clara had already learned one painful lesson. People judged what they saw. She wasn't considered beautiful by the town's standards. She was taller than most women, spoke her mind, and never smiled unless she truly meant it. 3 broken engagements had turned her into the subject of every gossip conversation. She's too stubborn. No man could live with her. Poor girl. She'll die alone. After years of hearing those words, Clara finally believed them. She stopped attending dances. She stopped wearing pretty dresses. She stopped hoping. Instead, she buried herself in work. Every morning before sunrise, every evening after sunset, work became her only companion. One freezing afternoon, the owner of the boarding house handed her a letter. A customer left this. Clara frowned. Nobody ever wrote to her. Inside was only one sentence. I need someone honest to help at my mountain cabin. 3 weeks of work. Good pay. Eli Carter. She had heard of Eli Carter. A mountain man. A trapper. A widower. People said he rarely came into town. Some claimed he hated company. Others believed he was simply lonely. Clara hesitated. But the boarding house barely paid enough to survive. She packed one small suitcase. The next morning, she rode into the mountains. Eli's cabin stood beside a frozen lake surrounded by pine trees. Simple, quiet, peaceful. When Eli opened the door, Clara was surprised. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with kind gray eyes hidden beneath a thick beard. He looked intimidating, but his voice was gentle. You made the trip. She nodded. I hope I'm not late. You came exactly when I needed you. No long speech. No judgment. Just honesty. The cabin was colder than expected. Eli explained that he had injured his shoulder while chopping wood. Cooking, cleaning, and carrying supplies had become difficult. I can pay every Saturday. Clara simply replied, I'm here to work. For the next several days, silence filled most of the cabin. She cooked. He repaired tools. She cleaned. He gathered firewood with one arm. Neither spoke much. Oddly, the silence felt comfortable. One morning Clara slipped while carrying water. She twisted her ankle badly. Pain shot through her leg. Before she could stand, Eli rushed over. Without saying anything, he carefully removed her boot. Her face turned red. I'm fine. No. He looked at her swollen ankle. You'll make it worse. He gently wrapped the injury with clean cloth before helping her onto the porch. Clara stared at him. No man had ever treated her with such quiet kindness. Not because he wanted something. Not to impress anyone. Simply because he cared. The next afternoon she apologized. I've become another burden. Eli looked confused. A burden? My ankle. He smiled softly. Helping someone isn't a burden. Those words echoed inside her heart. Nobody had ever said that before. As the weeks passed, their conversations slowly grew longer. She learned Eli's wife had died from illness 5 years earlier. Since then, he avoided town, not because he disliked people. Because every familiar face reminded him of his loss. Clara finally admitted why she rarely smiled. I spent years trying to become the woman everyone wanted. And I forgot who I was. Eli quietly added another log to the fire. You don't need everyone. She looked at him. You only need one person who sees the real you. One evening a heavy snowstorm trapped them inside. The wind howled outside. The fire crackled between them. Clara laughed at one of Eli's stories. It was the first genuine laugh she'd shared in years. Eli couldn't stop smiling. There it is. What? The smile you've been hiding. She lowered her eyes. I thought nobody noticed. I noticed the first day. When spring finally arrived, Clara prepared to leave. She folded her clothes into the small suitcase she had arrived with. Eli stood outside feeding the horses. Neither knew what to say. She walked toward him. Thank you for everything. He nodded quietly. I suppose this is goodbye. She turned toward the wagon. Halfway there, she heard footsteps behind her. Eli. He walked straight up to her. Without caring about the muddy ground. He knelt beside her. Clara's heart sank. She expected him to hand her forgotten wages. Instead, he looked into her eyes. Sit beside me. She blinked. What? He smiled. Not just today. He took her trembling hand. Sit beside me for the rest of our lives. Tears instantly filled her eyes. No one's ever asked me to stay. I am, she whispered. You barely know me. I know enough. You work hard. You tell the truth. You care for people. And when you finally smile, so does my heart. Clara began crying openly. Years of rejection. Years of loneliness. Years of believing she wasn't enough. All disappeared beneath those simple words. She nodded. Yes. Eli slipped a simple silver ring onto her finger. No audience. No celebration. Only mountains. Snow melting into spring. And two lonely hearts finally finding home in each other. Months later, people in town noticed something different. Clara smiled often. Eli laughed more than anyone remembered. The same people who once claimed no man could ever love her were now forced to admit they had been wrong. Because real love was never about being perfect. It was about finding the one person who saw your scars, and chose to hold your hand anyway. Sometimes, the greatest love story begins the moment someone says, sit beside me, and never leave. Please friends spot my channel. Like, share, comment. Subscribe for more stories. Thanks for watching.